It's 11:47 p.m. You're standing in front of the refrigerator, the cold light cutting through the dark kitchen. You're not starving. You just ate 3 hours ago. But there's a pull, a hollow, gnawing pressure in the center of your chest. That's dragging you toward the leftovers anyway. You grab a slice of cold pizza, then another, and 10 minutes later, the feeling is still there. Sharp, actually. More demanding than before. You've just made a critical mistake, and your brain set you up for it. Right now, deep inside your skull, a structure the size of an almond has been screaming for water, not food. Water. But your brain misfiled the alert, and you answered a thirst signal with a meal. Scientists have a name for this, the hunger glitch. And it may be the most dangerous biological bug in the human body. To understand how this glitch got coded into our DNA, you have to go back roughly 10,000 years to a world without faucets, filtered pitchers, or bottled water within arm's reach. For our ancestors living across the open plains and forests of the Pleistocene, clean water was harder to find than calories. Food sources were everywhere: berries, game, wild roots. But a reliable water source? That took effort, navigation, and sometimes luck. Evolution had to build in a backup. So the brain developed an emergency redundancy system. If water was unavailable, eating water-rich foods, raw fruit, fresh meat, leafy plants could cover hydration needs. The brain didn't need a separate alarm for thirst if hunger could accomplish the same result. And so, deep in the hypothalamus, the master control center, governing your body temperature, sleep, sex drive, hunger, and thirst, these two signals were wired together, tightly, dangerously close. It was a brilliant shortcut for a hunter-gatherer. For a modern American standing in a grocery store, it is a biological trap. The first scientist to glimpse this trap wasn't studying modern humans at all. In 19th century France, physiologist Claude was conducting groundbreaking experiments on how living systems maintain internal balance, what we now call homeostasis. When he deprived animals of water, something unexpected happened. Their hunger behaviors changed. His journals describe what he called a feverish pursuit of moisture. Animals eating damp earth, gnawing on wet vegetation, desperately seeking anything that might hydrate them. Bernard recognized that the brain wasn't distinguishing between "I need calories" and "I need water." It was simply broadcasting a generalized need. In the wild, that ambiguity didn't matter. Most of the food our ancestors consumed, wild berries, raw fruits, fresh game, carried significant water content. Eating solved both problems. The brain never had to be precise. But then, everything changed. The Industrial Revolution didn't just transform how Americans work and travel. It rewrote the molecular composition of what we eat. Over the last century, the United States became the global epicenter of ultra-processed food consumption. We moved from water-dense, whole foods to dry, shelf-stable, sodium-loaded products, engineered to be eaten fast and eaten again. The result was catastrophic for the hypothalamus. When you eat a bag of Doritos or a drive-through order of fries, you're not just consuming calories. You're flooding your bloodstream with sodium that actively pulls water out of your cells. This triggers a powerful thirst response in the hypothalamus. But that signal is traveling down the same congested neural highway as your hunger signal. Your conscious mind can't tell the difference. It reads the void as hunger, so you reach for more food. More sodium enters. More water leaves your cells. The signal intensifies. You eat again. It's a feedback loop your brain was never designed to handle, and millions of Americans are caught in it every single day. The most chilling evidence for how completely thirst and hunger can merge comes from a 1944 military study conducted right here in Minnesota. Dr. Ansel Keys recruited a group of healthy male volunteers and gradually restricted their caloric intake to simulate the conditions of wartime famine in Europe. What he didn't expect to document was a profound breakdown in basic biological perception. As the men grew more malnourished, their thirst patterns became erratic and extreme. Some participants began consuming up to 30 cups of water per day in an unconscious attempt to fill the void their bodies couldn't properly identify. Others wrote in their journals that they could no longer tell whether they wanted a meal or simply a hot cup of tea. The hunger signal and the thirst signal had merged into a single, undifferentiated scream, a biological alarm system so overwhelmed it had lost the ability to be specific. Here is the critical takeaway from Minneapolis. When the human body operates under chronic stress, the distinction between thirst and hunger doesn't weaken. It disappears entirely. And in America today, where financial stress, sleep deprivation, and sensory overload are the baseline, tens of millions of people are walking around in a version of that same physiological fog. But the hunger glitch goes deeper than wiring. It's also a chemistry problem, specifically a dopamine problem. Every time you eat, your brain's reward system releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure, motivation, and reinforcement. The dopamine hit from a cheeseburger or a slice of pie is significant, rapid, and memorable. Water, while physiologically essential, produces no comparable spike. So over time, through repetition, conditioning, and reinforcement, your brain learns to prefer the hunger interpretation of an ambiguous signal, because hunger leads to a chemical reward. You can barely stand. You might be mildly dehydrated, which is a genuine physiological stressor, but your brain would rather send you to the kitchen for a bag of chips than to the sink for a glass of water. This isn't a character flaw or a lack of discipline. It is internal gaslighting. Your own reward system actively hijacking the signal coming from your hypothalamus and overriding the biological truth. The hypothalamus knows you're thirsty. Your dopamine system doesn't care. It's holding the microphone, and it's shouting for sugar. Researchers at the University of Washington put this mechanism under a microscope in a landmark preloading study. Participants were divided into groups. One drank 2 full glasses of water before meals, the other did not. The water group ate significantly fewer calories, reported reaching fullness faster, and stayed satisfied longer. But the finding that stopped researchers was this. In approximately 40% of cases, what participants had identified as a hunger craving was traceable to mild, chronic dehydration. Not dramatic, collapse-inducing dehydration, just the quiet, low-level kind that millions of Americans walk around with daily without ever recognizing it. By giving the hypothalamus what it actually needed first, water, the hunger signal either disappeared or recalibrated to reflect a true caloric need. The preloading effect didn't suppress appetite through volume alone. It silenced the false alarm so the real one could finally be heard. Think about that 3 p.m. wall, the crash that hits millions of American workers every afternoon like clockwork. The instinct is to reach for a Red Bull, a bag of pretzels, or a trip to the office vending machine. But if you could do a live blood panel at that exact moment, here's what you'd likely find. Your blood volume has dropped slightly due to mild dehydration, forcing your heart to work harder to pump oxygen to your brain. The result is fatigue, cognitive fog, and reduced concentration. Symptoms your brain interprets, not as dehydration, but as a fuel shortage. It triggers a hunger pang. You eat. But digestion itself is a water-intensive process. Your body diverts hydration resources to break down that snack, which deepens the dehydration, which worsens the blood volume issue, which amplifies the fatigue. You've just eaten your way into a deeper energy hole, and you'll hit that wall again in 45 minutes, reaching for more. It's a slow-motion metabolic spiral, and most Americans are riding it every single day without knowing the exit. Here's a diagnostic technique that costs nothing and takes 30 seconds. The next time you feel hungry outside of a normal mealtime, close your eyes and locate the sensation with precision. Is it a low, grinding growl from your stomach, a genuine muscular contraction signaling an empty gut, or is it something higher, a dryness at the back of your throat, a faint tension behind your eyes, a vague pressure in your forehead that you can't quite place? Most people, when they slow down enough to actually listen, discover the signal is coming from the wrong address. We've become so conditioned to treat every internal sensation like a smartphone notification, something to swipe away fast, that we've lost fluency in our own body's language. We're answering emails from the wrong inbox. And every time we eat in response to a thirst signal, we delay the real message, deepen the confusion, and move further from the thing our body actually needs. There's a dark irony buried in all of this. We are the most overfed, underhydrated civilization in recorded human history. The United States leads the world in caloric consumption, per capita while simultaneously existing in a state of chronic low-level dehydration. We consume extraordinary quantities of liquid, sodas, energy drinks, flavored coffees, protein shakes. But many of these beverages are diuretics or carry such high solute loads that they draw more water out of cells than they deposit. We're essentially drinking anti-water. The hypothalamus never gets to rest. It runs in a constant state of low-grade alarm, the biological equivalent of a smoke detector chirping, because the battery is dying. And instead of changing the battery, we keep eating, painting over the walls, replacing the furniture, renovating the kitchen, while the alarm keeps chirping. The smoke that eventually rises from this system looks like weight gain, chronic fatigue, metabolic dysfunction, and a relationship with food that feels completely out of control. The food industry, for its part, has $1 trillion interest in keeping this glitch active. You can't monetize tap water. You absolutely can monetize the craving that dehydration creates. So how do you break the loop? Not with a juice cleanse, not with a reset kit, or a subscription box of wellness supplements. You break it with a 10-second decision and a 10-minute wait. High-performance athletes, NFL players, Olympic sprinters, elite endurance runners often train in conditions that make metabolic signal confusion dangerous. Misreading thirst as hunger during competition can cost a race or an injury. The technique their performance coaches use is deceptively simple. It's called the 10-minute rule. When a craving hits, they don't suppress it and they don't immediately satisfy it. They acknowledge it. Then they drink 16 ounces of room temperature water and set a timer for 10 minutes. Room temperature matters. Ice-cold water triggers a slight gastric response that can mask signals rather than clarify them. The 10 minutes gives the hypothalamus time to process the incoming hydration and recalibrate. If the hunger was real, a legitimate caloric deficit, it will still be there when the timer goes off, often stronger and more precisely located than before. But in a striking number of cases, the craving simply dissolves. The fog clears, the void fills, the brain stops shouting. It's not suppression, it's signal clarification, giving your hypothalamus the chance to tell you the truth. We are ancient biological machines living inside a world that was rebuilt overnight. Our neurological software hasn't received a meaningful update in 50,000 years, but the environment those neurons now operate in, the 24/7 sensory bombardment of food advertising, the engineered aromas pumped through shopping malls, the ultra-high resolution food photography colonizing every social media feed, was specifically designed to exploit the shared wiring between hunger and thirst. The processed food industry didn't stumble onto the hunger glitch by accident. They mapped it, studied it, and built an entire market around it. Every artificially flavored, sodium-spiked, hyper-palatable product on a convenience store shelf is calibrated to trigger that shared hypothalamic pathway and amplify the signal before your conscious mind can evaluate it. They are banking, literally banking, on your biology's oldest glitch. The question is whether you're going to keep paying that bill. The answer to the hunger glitch isn't a diet. It's a recalibration of awareness. It's the practice of pausing, genuinely pausing, before you eat in response to a craving, and asking one honest question. What am I actually missing right now? Not what sounds good, not what's closest. What is my body signaling, and have I actually listened? Because here's the truth that billions of dollars of food marketing is working overtime to make you forget. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not someone without willpower. You are a person with a brain that was optimized for a world that no longer exists, operating in an environment engineered to exploit that mismatch. The void you feel at midnight, the 3 p.m. crash, the endless snacking that never quite satisfies, these aren't signs of failure. They are symptoms of a system that hasn't been given what it actually needs. The fix is not on a shelf at Whole Foods. It's in your kitchen, flowing from your tap, completely free, available right now. Your body has been sending you a message for a long time. It has been patient. Next time the craving hits, don't reach for the plate first. Reach for the glass. Drink. Wait 10 minutes. And for the first time in a long time, you might actually hear what your body has been trying to tell you. You aren't empty. You're just thirsty.